I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna shout, I'm gonna let the reason out that his love goes on forever. I'm gonna take it all the way, I'm gonna praise you.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Maple Minute on this Thursday, March the 4th, 2021. The third aspect, and let me review, for number one was humility is knowing how much you don't know. The second thing he said was that humility is living with what you don't like sometimes. And that brings us to our third one today. Humility is accepting what you can't change. Wow, that's hard, and that's why it's so hard to accept things we can't change. That's what irritates us so much, because there are so many things we hate to accept because we can't change them, but it's the truth. And along that line, Solomon breaks it down really into four different categories, the way I see it. Four different categories in this one heading of things that you can't change. And they go things like this. Number one is death. Death is something that definitely you can't change. And Solomon here in verse number 8, he says, "No man has the power to retain the spirit or power of the day of death." And that's true. There is no discharge from war, nor will wickedness deliver those who are given to it. And really, that's one of those things that we have a hard time accepting, isn't it? Some of you have gone through deaths of family and friends that were so dear to you, and it's just destroyed you. And the truth of the matter is, some of it's because of our own, like, I can't handle this because I don't want it to happen. But true humility is understanding that, hey, we have to accept what we can't change. I know when my mom passed away, and even my dad, it was just so hard for me to accept because I didn't want to see them go. But I have to realize that I'm not in control of it. And I got angry with God, just be honest. And what I have to realize is true humility says, I don't like it, but I have to take it because I'm not in charge. I can't change this. The second area that he talks about is not just death, but distress. He says in verse number 9, "All this I observed while applying my heart to all that is done under the sun, when man had power over man to his hurt." You know, the distresses of life, when you start looking at everything that's going on in the news and everything that's going on worldwide and just here in the United States, politics, the people that are just being rude and obnoxious and political and all kinds of stuff, and some of them are claim to be Christians, just the stress of life hurts us, and we just want it to stop. I know so many people I've talked to, they just get so upset about it, but you know what? You can't change what is. You can't change the things and how people react. And humility is saying, hey, you know what? I can't change everything. I can't change you. I can't change the things that I don't like. I have to go through and live with some of these things. And one of the things we have to live with is distress. The third area that Solomon picks out is deception. He goes on to say in verse 10, "Then I saw the wicked buried. They used to go in and out of the holy place and were praised in the city where they had done such things. This also is vanity." And he's pointing out a contradiction here. He's saying, you know, I saw bad people, wicked people buried. And then he says, wait a minute, I saw them going in and out of church. I saw them going in and out of the temple, and they were praised in the city where they had done things that were really bad. Sometimes, and we've noticed this even in some of the faces of some of the more popular Christian leaders. Think about guys like Ravi Zacharias and what's going on in his world right now. It's sad to hear that he lived a lie. And that's what Solomon's saying, hey, you can get upset about it, you can go crazy town about it, and certainly we hurt for those people that are hurting, that he used and abused, those women that he did things to. But you know what? I have to learn, I can't change it. I don't have the ability, that the deception he was living. John Christ is another guy. Hey, he made me so mad when I found out that he was abusing girls that were coming to his comedy shows and using in the name of Jesus Christ to be able to get away with it. And that he had done it multiple times, and that just makes me so upset. But you know what? In calming myself down, I have to realize I have to have some humility in my life, because you know what? I don't have the ability to change those things. That's what Solomon's talking about here. And then the fourth area he talks about, fourth category about accepting things you can't change as far as humility, is defiance. He goes on in verses 11 through 14 and says, "Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily." People don't get what's coming to you because of what you did. He says the heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil. That's why punishment sometimes doesn't come quick enough, at least God's punishment, and that's what encourages people to do things wrong. He says, though a sinner does evil 100 times and prolongs his life, yet I know that it will be well with those who fear God, because they fear before him. but it'll not be well with the wicked. Neither will he prolong his day like a shadow, because he does not fear before God. There is a vanity that takes place on earth, that there are righteous people to who it happens according to the deeds of the wicked, and there are wicked people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. I said that this is also vanity. You know what he's saying here is that a lot of ungodly people live in defiance of God. And that just bothers us. And we want justice. I mean, one of the things that I always like about some of the movies I watch is that the bad guy gets it in the end, right? My wife and I were watching a show the other day where it was a show about espionage and spies and everything, and this one double agent who was working for the bad guys kept getting away with everything, and my wife said, I just want to see her pay. And that's what we want. And sometimes that's just fiction, but sometimes that happens in real life. And evil people get away with it, and we're like, when are they going to get their just reward? And you know what? Humility says, I have to accept the things I can't change, and that's that defiance of life. Some people do things that are wrong, and I can't stand it, but I can't change it. And that's what's sad. Now, that doesn't mean I have to hey, just let everybody do whatever. I'm not saying we encourage people to do wrong. What I'm saying is, in my own life, I have to realize that I need humility to realize I have to accept things that I can't change. I can't change the government of the United States or any other country in the world. Now, for evil to reign free, good men have to do nothing, and so we need to take the approach that we need to be proactive, but we got to have the humility to act that God's sovereign and He's in control, and that's what Solomon's trying to encourage us on. The fourth aspect or definition of humility that he gives us in Ecclesiastes chapter 8 is that humility is enjoying what you can't explain. And that's true. We've been on some heavy subjects just recently, so let's move into something that's fun. Humility is enjoying what you can't explain. And that's some of the things that we sort of stress over. In verse number 15, he says, and I commend joy. He's been giving us so many heavy things. He says, I commend joy. For man has nothing better under the sun. And remember, when he says that, he's talking about life without God. But he says, man doesn't have anything better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful. For this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. You know, sometimes we act like we should not enjoy life. And Solomon, though he's not looking and working with God, he's saying, sometimes you just need to enjoy things. And the things you can't explain. See, remember the psalmist over in Psalm 23, that great psalm that everybody sort of knows and quotes, especially at funerals. He said, goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our life. And I think we forget that because we look at troubles. And so often we're walking in this valley of the shadow of death, but we should be viewing the things that God gives us, the joyful things. And you know what? We need to accept them. And even if we can't explain them, the secret of life and happiness is embracing heaven while accepting earth. And I think that's what we're trying to understand here. We need to be able to practice humility, which is enjoying what you can't explain. And that's tough because there's a lot we can't explain. The fifth and final definition he gives us in Ecclesiastes chapter 8 is that humility is discovering what you can't discover. And that's the truth here. And this is sort of a perplexity here, I know. But he goes on to say in verses 16 and 17, he says, when I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on earth. Now, once again, Solomon, the wisest man to ever live, he says, how neither day nor night does one's eye see sleep. Then I saw all the work of God, that man cannot find out the word that is done under the sun. The work, I believe it's work, sorry for the typo. How much man may toil in seeking, he will not find out. Even though a wise man claims to know, he cannot find out. And he's really speaking of himself. And when he's saying, hey, there are so many things that even wise people, even people that have their PhDs in every letter under alphabet, even people that have studied and know things, what's hard is there are things that we won't know. But, humility is discovering what you can't discover. And that's the learning the limits. You know what? There are things that are just too great for our comprehension and sometimes too dangerous for us to grasp. And I think that's the truth. You don't have to know everything. And as a Christ follower, I would encourage you, don't try and figure everything out. What you need to focus on is what God gives you. And that's where humility is. Because when I discover what I can't discover, then what I'm saying is, I don't know it all and I don't control it all, but God does. So I hope as you go through your week that you'll understand how humility should work in our lives. Because what Solomon's leading us to, as we've been looking for this elusive meaning of life, is the fact that a life with humility is much better than a life full of pride. Let's be humble in who we are. Let's be humble followers of God, because God is the one who's almighty. We're not. So until next time, remember to like us, remember to post some comments on Facebook, and share us out if you could. We'd appreciate that. We'll see you next time here on the Maple Minute.
His name up high, 'cause his love goes on forever.